Alarms were screaming through the cargo hold before I even reached the wreckage, and my hands were already shaking, not from fear, but from the cold air leaking out of the cracked hull. I am Ellie Brooks, Cadet 3rd Class, and I was the first one to climb into that broken escape pod. I was not supposed to be the first. I was supposed to be running a supply count, but the distress signal came from a drifting pod near our training cruiser, and someone had to check it before the automated drones sealed it off for salvage. Inside, tangled in torn cushioning and sparking wire, was a creature the size of a large dog, with fur the color of wet ash and eyes like burning copper. It was breathing hard, curled into itself, one leg bent wrong. It snarled the moment it saw me, a sound that vibrated in my chest, but it did not lunge. It was too hurt to lunge. It was just scared. I did not think about danger. I thought about the sound my neighbor's injured cat used to make back home, and how you had to move slow and talk low so it would not panic further. So that is what I did. I knelt down, kept my voice soft, and reached out. The moment my hand touched its fur, the ship's comm system exploded with noise. 2 crew members rounded the corner behind me, a Velkari engineer named Torin and a Senash navigator named Yura, and the second they saw what I was holding, they both went dead silent. Then Torin let out a sound I had never heard a Velkari make before, something between a moan and a scream, and stumbled backward into the wall so hard he dented the panel. Yura did not move at all. She stood frozen, every one of her 4 eyes locked on the small animal in my arms, her breathing gone shallow and fast, like she had forgotten how lungs worked. I looked down at the cub, then back at them. It weighed maybe 30 pounds. It had a hurt leg. It was shivering. Torin found his voice first, and it cracked as he spoke. "Put it down," he said. "Put it down now and step away." I frowned. "It is hurt," I said. "It needs medical attention, not to be dropped on a metal floor." Yura finally moved, but only to grab the comm panel on the wall and slam her hand against the emergency channel. "Command," she said, voice shaking. "We have a containment breach. Repeat, we have a live juvenile Kelmoran aboard." I had never heard that word before. Kelmoran. But the second she said it, the ship's lighting shifted to a deep red, and I heard boots pounding down the corridor from 3 directions at once. Within a minute, the cargo hold was full of armed crew from 4 different species, all pointed at me and the animal in my arms, all of them radiating a kind of fear I had never seen grown adults show before. Not caution, not alertness. Fear, the kind that makes hands shake and voices break. A Velkari officer named Corin Ashfield pushed through the crowd, his rifle raised, his jaw tight. "Cadet Brooks," he said, "step away from it immediately." I did not step away. Instead, I asked the only question that made sense to me. What exactly is a Kelmoran? The silence that followed was heavier than the alarms had been. It was Yura who finally answered, her voice low. "The Kelmoran are the reason 3 border systems went dark 40 years ago. Full colonies, thousands of people. Adult Kelmoran hunt in packs. They move faster than our sensors can track, and they do not stop until every living thing in range is gone. We do not fight them. We evacuate and pray they lose interest." I looked down at the cub again. It had stopped snarling. It was staring up at me with those copper eyes, confused, its ears low, its small body trembling against my arm, not from aggression, just from pain and cold. "That does not look like something that ends colonies," I said. "That looks like something that needs a blanket." Corin's grip tightened on his rifle. "That is exactly how they get you," he said. "They look harmless until they are not." "It is a baby," I said. "It is hurt, and it is alone. I am not going to throw it on the floor because you are scared of what it might become someday." Somebody in the back, a younger Senash crew member, made a strangled sound at the word scared, like the idea itself was unbearable to hear out loud. Then the ship's captain arrived, a stern older Velkari named Danis Cray, and the crowd parted for her immediately. She stopped a few paces away, studied the cub, studied me, and I watched something complicated cross her face, something between disbelief and calculation. "Explain to me, Cadet Brooks, why you are not on the floor right now," she said. "Why your heart rate, according to the medical scanner behind me, has not risen above resting." I did not have a good answer. "I am not sure why," I said. "It looked hurt. I helped it. That is all." Cray turned to her science officer, a quiet Ilmuran named Petra Solis, who had been standing off to the side this whole time, watching everything with sharp, careful eyes instead of fear. Petra stepped forward slowly. She was the only other person in the room who was not shaking. "Captain," she said, "I would like permission to run a scan on the cadet. Not because I think she is compromised, because I think this is important." Cray studied me a long moment, then nodded once. Petra ran a small handheld scanner over me while I stood there holding 30 pounds of apex predator like it was a stray puppy. The cub had gone still now, its trembling slowing, its breathing evening out, its eyes half closed, like it had decided, against every instinct in the room, that I was safe. Fascinating, Petra murmured, reading her scanner. No adrenal spike, no cortisol surge. Her nervous system genuinely does not register this creature as a threat. That is not possible, Torin said from the wall, his voice still unsteady. Every species that has ever encountered a Kelmoran registers threat instantly. It is instinct older than language. Every species we have documented so far, Petra corrected gently. Humans are new to this alliance. Perhaps their threat instincts evolved differently. Cray's eyes narrowed at me. Different how? I thought about it honestly, because it seemed important to get right. Where I come from, I said, we did not have one single thing at the top of the food chain that hunted us for millions of years. We had lots of dangerous animals, but nothing that shaped every part of us like that. I think maybe we just never learned to be afraid of something before we understood why. The room went quiet again, but it was a different kind of quiet now. Less terror, more unease, like they were realizing something new, and were not sure they liked it. Cray took a slow breath. That is either the safest trait a species could have, she said, or the most dangerous, depending on the day. I held the cub a little tighter without meaning to, feeling it lean into me, feeling its small heartbeat slow to match my own steady one. Captain, I said, whatever it becomes later, right now it is a scared, injured animal that trusted the only person in this room who did not scream at it. If we hurt it now, out of fear of what it might do someday, are we really any different from what we are afraid it will become? Corin lowered his rifle slightly, though his hands were still tense. That is dangerously sentimental thinking, Cadet. Maybe, I said. But it is also just true. Cray looked at Petra. Recommendation. Quarantine and observation, Petra said immediately. Under controlled conditions, with medical treatment for the leg. And I would like Cadet Brooks present during observation. The cub's stress levels are lowest around her. Removing her may cause it to panic and become genuinely dangerous. Cray was silent for a long moment, weighing decades of institutional fear against the calm, steady heartbeat readout on Petra's scanner, against the picture in front of her of a small predator resting peacefully in human arms, instead of tearing the room apart. Fine, she said at last. Quarantine. Cadet Brooks stays with it. But Brooks, if that thing so much as bares a tooth at anyone, you step back immediately. Understood? Understood, I said. The crowd slowly dispersed, though every single one of them gave me and the cub a wide, careful berth on the way out, watching me the same way they might watch someone casually petting a live power conduit. Torin lingered at the door a moment longer than the others, staring at me with something that was not quite fear anymore, but was not quite trust either. How do you do that? He asked quietly. How do you just decide not to be afraid? I looked down at the cub, now fully asleep against my chest, its injured leg wrapped, its breathing slow and even. I do not think I decided anything, I said. I think some of us just never learned the lesson you were all taught. And maybe that is not a flaw. Maybe it is just different. Torin did not answer. He just nodded slowly and walked out, and I stood there in the quiet, red-lit cargo hold, holding a creature that had once ended entire colonies, feeling nothing but the steady, trusting rhythm of its small heartbeat against mine. Later that night, as I sat beside the cub's recovery bed reading through medical scans I barely understood, Petra came to sit beside me, arms crossed, studying me like I was the more interesting specimen in the room. You know, she said, word is already spreading through the fleet channels. Humans do not fear the Kelmoran. Is that a good thing? I asked. Petra smiled faintly, watching the cub's tail twitch in its sleep. Honestly, Cadet, she said, I think some of them are more afraid of that fact than they ever were of the Kelmoran itself. I looked down at the small, sleeping creature curled peacefully beside me, and for the first time since the alarms had gone off, I let myself smile too.